and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by the man who said Argentina couldn't do it. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Don't you put that evil on me.
It was me. It was me who, in the Argentina preview, basically suggested this team has no chance. They're going to get beat up badly at the World Cup.
How big were the bullets you were sweating today?
So we're going to do this review of the game later, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk US Women's National Team first. But I will tell you this. Started out big bullets. Because I was kind of like, all right, I need Japan to score so that I don't look bad.
You had such a strange rooting interest in Japan
right?
scoring.
I really did want Japan to beat Argentina just so I didn't look bad on my preview. But towards the end, I'd kind of got into the mode of, all right, I've put 70 minutes into this. They've put 70 hard minutes into this. They kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
And at least it'll give me something to talk about on the show.
There you go. Perfect.
So I ended up kind of not quite rooting for them, but at least feeling like, oh, go on then.
Yeah, exactly. It morphed from I need to be right. They better get scored on a bunch to hold on, mighty Argentina.
Yeah. It's almost as if I realised that maybe I was less important than the entire Argentina women's national team competing at the World Cup.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah, getting their first ever point.
To some folk, not to me, but to some folk, yes.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Also, it was quite hard to root for Japan given their decisions during the game.
Oh yeah.
So we'll get into all of that
too.
We'll get into all of that later, as well as Canada-Cameroon when we do a wrap up of the day's action.
I thought for a minute you were about to make like bad history jokes, and I was like, hey, that's my lane. You stay out of there.
No.
Gotcha.
No.
All right.
But first, I believe, Taylor, earlier today, before you met me, you recorded an interview with Caitlin Murray.
I did.
She's kind of our correspondent in France.
Yes.
I was going to say in Paris, I assume. She's in France talking US Women's National Team.
Our friend in France.
Our friend in France, Caitlin Murray. She is previewing the US Women's National Team's opening World Cup game against Thailand with you.
She is.
I haven't heard it. I want to know what you ask her about.
I've kept it from you this whole time. Mostly we just talk about you and your bad prediction about Argentina. No, it is somewhat about USA Thailand, but as listeners will probably not be surprised by, the prediction is that they will win handily the United States. So I think they're sort of trying not to go down that route the players are. So it's a little bit about Thailand. It's a little bit about what the United States is going to try to do against them, and maybe how they're going to kind of use that to game plan against future opposition potentially.
Which is interesting in the face of what happened today, where Canada only beat Cameroon 1-0 and, say, Japan didn't manage to score at all against Argentina. There are risks for bigger teams going against smaller teams who we assume are going to go defensive.
That is definitely true. But then we also talk about the preparations, how they've been, how France has been.
All right.
Also, there's a fairly longer conversation about Hope Solo's comments about Jill Ellis. And
so you put some drama in it.
Yeah, about how Jill Ellis and some of the players have responded to that. And I also ask her about Hope Solo's perception within the team, which she answers as well, because she wrote a whole book about him.
Shall I stop wasting everybody's time then and let our listeners get to the Taylor and Caitlin Murray interview?
You should. I should also remind our listeners, Caitlin Murray references her book in the interview. That book is The National Team, The Inside Story of the Women Who Changed Soccer.
I knew that.
Available wherever you get books.
I have a copy.
Do you still get books? You can get books, right?
You can still get books,
cool.
Things aren't quite that bad yet.
All right, that's good.
Ask me again next year.
Yes.
All right, so here's Taylor's interview with Caitlin about the US Women's National Team.
With me now, all the way from France, I think on a balcony overlooking the stadium, is Caitlin Murray of The Guardian, covering the U.S. Women's National Team for The Guardian. Caitlin, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you, I think the field inspection is currently happening, or has that already been underway?
No, I was not allowed out there while the field inspection was happening, but it was being broadcast live in the media room. And as far as I could tell, the media inspection was the players taking selfies of themselves.
Exactly.
So that is over. Now I'm allowed out, and I'm overlooking the stadium that the teams will be playing in tomorrow.
All right. And what is the vibe in camp so far? I know you haven't been in France too long, but I'm wondering how the team is kind of feeling about the game against Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, I think they feel pretty confident. It's interesting kind of going to the press conferences with the U.S. being the last team that is going to actually start playing in this World Cup. It feels sort of like the media are trying to figure out what the storylines within the team are, because it's kind of easy to look past Thailand a little bit and even past the group stage. So there's not really any sort of kind of overarching narrative right now. It's just the players are confident. They're focused on Thailand. people keep trying to ask them about questions about other teams, and they're not really indulging those very much. They're just sort of saying that they're focused on Thailand. But as far as I can tell, the team looks to be in good spirits. Tight-knit group. They talk about their bubble a lot and not paying attention to what the media has to say. So, I think it's pretty usual stuff, honestly. But the team does seem to be in a good place.
And in terms of preparing for that Thailand game, because as you said, it is pretty easy to overlook them. How do you think the team is going about preparing for them? What do you think we should expect maybe in terms of the lineup and maybe their approach to that game?
Yeah, Jill Ellis was actually asked in the press conference that just ended about a half hour ago. And she was asked about, has she thought about the other games and kind of how you rotate and you look at the fact that Sweden, the actual toughest opponent, is the last game of the group. And Jill Ellis, of course, did not give anything away. She sort of joked, yes, I've thought about that, and that's my whole answer to that question. I think that the U.S. is going to come out with their strongest lineup. They aren't going to look past Thailand. They want to come out with a statement of intent because, I talked about how there's not many storylines right now within the team. Something the U.S. has been asked a lot about is how good France looked in the opening game. And does that kind of put pressure on them or inspire the Americans to kind of show up? And I think it does. I think you want to come out of the gate strong and kind of send a message to the rest of the competition. So I fully expect that's what the U.S. is going to want to do.
And for you personally, or maybe just for helping our listeners, how would you go about evaluating the performance against Thailand? Because I know we're all hoping for lots of goals, but I think sometimes that can be a bit of a bad way to go, because suddenly if the United States hasn't scored in 30 minutes, but they're dominating and they're doing exactly what they want to do, then it still might not look very good if they're only 1-0 up or something like that. So what are some things you would like to see? What are some signs you think that the United States is sort of implementing their game plan and having the success that they would be hoping for?
Yeah, I wouldn't even really look at the goals to mean anything because look, we all know that this U.S. team is incredibly effective at attacking. They are going to score goals in this tournament. I don't think there's really any question about that. The question marks are about the defense. And it's not as if Thailand is going to score a bunch of goals on the U.S. It would frankly be a surprise if Thailand scored once. Mm-hmm. But we have seen against weaker competition that the U.S. has looked vulnerable to the counterattack where they've gotten caught really far up, and it's just the fact that their opponent wasn't very good at finishing. I remember Romania scored a goal against the U.S., I think in 2017, and it was one goal. I think the U.S. won that game 6-1, so it didn't really mean anything. But I looked at that and I thought, this seems like a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen time and time again that the way Romania scored that goal is how the U.S. concedes goals. It's usually they're caught in transition, caught too far up the field, and get sort of exposed in that way. So, I'll be curious to see if Thailand is able to kind of reveal any sort of those vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. I'm less sort of worried about the goals. I think even if they don't score a bunch in this game, they're going to come, especially as the tournament gets rolling, they get into a rhythm. I think people talk about goals, but I would be looking more at the defense and whether they're getting caught up a little bit.
And so will you be keeping an eye on the center backs? Is that the fullbacks getting too far forward? Is that Julie Ertz staying back a little bit more? What do you think will be the kind of sign that the United States is paying attention to the threat of counterattacks?
Yeah, usually what happens is the fullbacks push really far up the field, and then the midfield, Julie Ertz, if she doesn't make that tackle, she doesn't stop that oncoming attack, then it's just kind of like the center backs alone. And look, Becky Sauerbrunn, I think, has been one of the best center backs in the world. Abby Dahlkemper has proved herself, but I don't think the center backs for the U.S. have a ton of speed. And I think they are definitely vulnerable to a team that can really just hit really quickly on the counter. Like I said, the fullbacks get caught so far up, and the midfield doesn't have a lot of steel in it. Julie Ertz is a really important player. She can't do everything. She can't be everywhere on the field and stop everything that's going to be approaching from the opponent. So that's probably what I'd be looking for.
And I know you're probably a little jet lagged, so I don't know how much time you've
very
had.
Jet lagged.
Okay, we'll say very jet lagged. But have you heard much about like anyone in particular on Thailand or the way that they expect Thailand to play in terms of what maybe like listeners should be paying attention to, how they might approach it, or maybe who their key player might be?
Honestly, no. When the U.S. is asked about Thailand, they sort of give the generic answer that they're not looking past any of their opponents. Thailand is a good team. Every team that made it is a good team.
Of course. Jill
Ellis today said, the fact that Thailand is in back-to-back World Cups means something, that they're, improving and growing. I would say listeners should probably just listen to the preview show that you and Daryl did, which I have to listen to tonight. Because I'm sure you did a much better job of preparing people for Thailand than Jill Ellis did or than I can.
I appreciate that. Well, then I'll ask you a different Jill Ellis question. And thank you for listening. We appreciate the downloads, especially since I think they'll come from France. So it looks like we're even more European.
Yeah, you're
thank
international.
You there we go. Has there been much reaction to Hope Solo's comments about Jill Ellis? I'm wondering if Jill Ellis has been asked about them or if there's been much if there's been any comment on those from the players. I doubt there has been.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of dominated the questions yesterday. Julie Ertz and Alyssa Nair were available to the media, and that was the first question that was asked. And the players, of course, said they had not seen the comments, so they couldn't comment, and they're in a bubble. They're not following social media, so they kind of got out of that one a little bit. Jill Ellis was asked tonight about it. And she said, comments are comments. And she said, she's had to make a lot of decisions as a coach. She has processes that she uses to make those decisions. And the team is kind of focused on what's happening internally. They're not really focused on what's happening externally. Hope Solo, since she's been kicked off the team, she is an external factor. So, she deflected it. Which I think is exactly what we all expected.
And what about you? What do you make of her criticisms? I'm pretty torn, I'll be totally honest, because I was interested in some of the things she said, particularly about relying on assistance, but then also to your earlier point, with the U.S. playing like the last game of the group stages or of the first round of the group stages, and like there not being much else to talk about, it also feels a little bit like, oh, there's not much to talk about? Well, here's Hope Solo lobbing in a bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think there's probably a kernel of truth to what Hope Solo has said, but I also think that, Hope Solo has a potential axe to grind, right? I mean, Jill Ellis kicked her off the team. Great anecdote in my book, if anyone wants to pick it up. Just a shameless plug there for you. But yeah, we can't pretend that Hope Solo is sort of a neutral commentator on these issues. I think it was interesting specifically that she called out set pieces and not watching goals being conceded on set pieces. 2016 had some bad set pieces, and we know that Hope Solo let in a couple of goals. So it's just sort of interesting context to think about, what was she maybe referring to, or what was she trying to address in those comments? I don't know. This isn't going to be the last we're going to hear of Hope Solo. She's going to be doing stuff for BBC. She's actually a columnist for The Guardian throughout the World Cup. So, I'm interested for more of her takes, because if there's one thing about Hope Solo, it's that she says exactly what she's thinking. She doesn't really hold back. So, you have to appreciate that at least.
I was going to ask that. How do you think she is sort of viewed from within the locker room as a former teammate, now as you said, an external factor, but still a pundit, still I would say a person who's been very front and center for the U.S. women's national team in years past, has been a leader. How do you think they kind of think of her these days?
Yeah, That's a good question. I think, Carly Lloyd and Hope Solo were really close when they were on the team together. I think that probably other players weren't as close with Hope Solo. Mm-hmm. I have to assume that the players, they talk about their bubble. They talk about not being distracted. I'm sure they don't appreciate having to address these things. But I mean, it was. I guess it's something new to talk about because the other thing that kept coming up in the press conferences is Alyssa Nair following in the footsteps of Hope Solo, and can she rise to the opportunity? And Alyssa Nair has kind of been really a focal point for criticism and questions, and at least it was maybe a different storyline to talk about. Mm-hmm. The other big storyline has been Carly Lloyd, the fact that she's not starting. And I thought it was interesting tonight in the press conference, Jill Ellis, you actually asked me on a previous podcast if Carly Lloyd is sort of a bad presence in the locker room because she's not a starter. And she's openly admitted that she's not happy about it and she thinks she should be a starter. Right. And Jill Ellis said she loves that. She loves that Carly thinks that she can come in and impact a game, and it's not a problem at all, and that's how Carly's always been. So, yeah, I think the Hope Solo stuff just kind of gives everyone something new to focus on. Maybe the players appreciate that. My guess is they don't, but, either way, they're really not going to say very much, so we have to kind of guess.
Did she say that about Carly Lloyd through gritted teeth, is my next question? Was she like, I love it, it's wonderful when she questions it publicly?
No, actually, I was taking notes, and the question was phrased as... whether it was a problem or something. And I noticed that Jill Ellis laughed. And the first thing she said, no, I've coached Carly for years. I think that there's sort of an understanding between Jill Ellis and Carly Lloyd. And I really got the sense that that was the genuine feeling, is that Jill she loves that Carly is such a competitor and she wants her to be angry and play with a chip on her shoulder and then, unleash her when the U.S. needs her. So I think it's only a good thing.
So if the United States does find itself in a position, because this is something Daryl and I talked about when we were talking, I think when we did the U.S. women's part of the Group F preview, we talked a little bit about like some concerns we have about Alex Morgan. If Carly Lloyd comes in and starts scoring, if Alex Morgan maybe doesn't look as sharp, Carly Lloyd scores some big time goals, do you think Jill Ellis kind of backs herself to potentially start Carly Lloyd in a knockout round over Alex Morgan, or do you expect her more so to stick with Alex Morgan unless things are like catastrophic?
Yeah, I thought about that too, because Carly has been sort of on a roll. She's been scoring a lot of goals. And I thought it was really funny that she was asked about the fact that she's been in good form and she's been scoring a lot of goals lately. And she was asked, what's different? And she said, I've been in good form for the last 2 years. I wasn't a bad soccer player and became a good soccer player overnight. I've always been in good form, which I thought was a hilarious response because it was very direct. I've thought about that, though, and I think that the way Alex Morgan plays and the way Carly Lloyd plays are so different. Mm-hmm. And I think people focus a lot on whether Alex Morgan is scoring, which they should. She's a striker. That's her job. But she does so much more in terms of checking back, holding up the ball, providing to other players, playing sort of a more mobile role and affecting the game in other ways that I just don't know if that's the way Carly plays. And I think the U.S. kind of counts on Alex to play that way. So if the U.S. is still getting goals from other players, I don't know if they're going to change it up and just, Jill Ellis is going to abandon what I think has been the plan in her mind for such a long time. But, we did see in 2015 that she did actually change some things up toward the end based on who was playing well. But, yeah, it will be interesting to see. I don't know. We'll have to see on that one.
All right. Well, if she does change it up, I'm assuming you'll be there to write about it, to hopefully talk to us about it. What is your schedule like for the next 24 hours or so leading up to this game?
Actually, the the day of a game for reporters, I think, is usually pretty chill because there's no availabilities. You've probably written all the things that you've needed to write. I've only checked out it's pronounced Rance or something. I've only checked out the city a little bit. So, maybe I'll try to check out some more of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this World Cup to finally start. It feels like we've just kind of been on hold and been talking about the same things over and over again. I mean, I can't think of a reporter who has not written that Carly Lloyd story. So, we just need some games to happen.
Is everyone just like keeping in their back pocket? Like, all right, it's a slow Tuesday. I guess I got to write the Carly Lloyd story now.
Well, I mean, it's a legitimate story. Like, it's a big thing to talk about. And I think especially with World Cups, you get a lot of people who they only tune in every 4 years. So they remember Carly Lloyd as the hero in 2015, and it's going to be weird for them to see that she's not a starter.
Very true.
I mean, it's a story. You have to talk about it, but I'm just kind of ready to have some actual games to talk about, Instead
of the rigorous field inspection. That makes sense to me. All right. Well, then, Caitlin, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for taking the time, and hopefully we can talk to you maybe later on the week. Hopefully after the United States have won and looked convincing and not been counterattacked upon.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you then.
So that was Caitlin Murray talking to Mr. Taylor Rockwell.
It was indeed.
Who is here with me now. Turns out you didn't talk about me at all.
We did not. We did not. We're saving that for the next time when, hopefully we'll have Caitlin back on maybe to look towards the game against Chile, maybe chat a little bit about Thailand, and then as well as kind of keep us informed on all things that are happening within the camp. I'm sure she'll tunnel in and find all the information.
Yeah. Was she having a good time in France at least?
I think she was pretty jet lagged. I think she had arrived not long before we spoke.
Is she West Coast?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay, so it's 9 hours by the time you get to France?
10 hours, I think. No, you're right. 9 hours. Yeah, 9, you got it right. You know your European time.
Oh yeah, I can say I've been back and forth across the Atlantic.
Oh, have you?
Maybe more than is necessary.
That's probably true.
Okay, so we'll talk maybe a little more US Thailand later when we sort of talk about what's happening tomorrow. But first, you've got to make sure you can see those games.
This is true.
With the correct contact lens prescription. See what I did there?
I see what you've done there.
See what I did there.
You've brought it to today's sponsor, Simple Contacts.
Yes.
Our friends over at Simple Contacts. They make getting contacts for your eyes, and therefore for your face, as easy as possible.
I don't think that's their official copy line.
Is it not?
No. It's more that Simple Contacts is the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your brands of contacts from anywhere. In minutes, it's vision care for the 21st century.
It is.
But yours was a good second place.
I'm going to keep going with it because it is, as they say, there are a million things demanding your time. One of those things is the Women's World Cup. There are games on all the time. There are replays of those games that you can watch if you haven't watched them in the first run. And then if you did and you want to see it again, you can do that too.
You sure can.
So if you've got all that going on, you then maybe don't have time to go to the doctor, to wait on hold to schedule the appointment, but Simple Contacts makes it very easy for you to get those contacts.
So there are two main things about Simple Contacts.
What you got?
The first is, like you said, you have to go to did you call them the doctors? The eye doctors.
Yeah. I still don't know the difference between like the three different types of eye doctor, or if there even is one.
I just say eye place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yours is definitely better. I go eye place. I see things.
If you don't want to go eye place, you can renew your prescription using the Simple Contacts app. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your laptop, you can do it on your tablet, and you essentially take a vision test that takes maybe 5 minutes. It's reviewed by an actual eye doctor, and assuming everything checks out, then your prescription is renewed. You don't have to go and see eye doctor.
I like that we've created a scenario in which a caveman, I think, is going to iPlace to see Eye Guy.
I mean, cavemen's eyes deteriorate as well.
Yeah.
They didn't all have 20/20 vision.
This is true. They definitely did not.
But they could get $20 off.
They could. How could they do that, Mr. Grove?
If you go to simplecontacts.com/TSS20, or you use the code at checkout, TSS20, so the letters TSS, the number's 20, you will get $20 off. Did I say 20%? I meant $20 off the cost of your contact lenses.
Let's do that one more time then. To get $20 off your contacts, go to simplecontacts.com/TSS20, enter the code TSS20 at checkout to get $20 off. Remember, this is not a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam, but it is a way to get vision without leaving your home.
Get vision without leaving your home, or watching the Avengers.
Yes.
Or watching the weakest plot part of the Avengers.
Correct.
Fair?
Yes. Pauses for a moment to think. Agrees wholeheartedly.
And just to double underline confirm, I said 20%, I meant $20 off. $20 off.
All right.
TSS20. The link will be in the show notes.
We're doing great. Let's talk some Women's World Cup, shall we?
Yes. Well, We're doing better than Japan.
This is true. So this
Argentina-Japan.
Argentina-Japan finishes 0-0. Neither one of us saw this coming. I don't think anybody did. And I do feel like there was a sort of course correction from some where it became this like heroic story of this team who found a way to get a point. And that is true. But
it is true.
But I do think part of that was sort of in response to maybe some of those same people, us included, a little bit dismissing Argentina's chances. And then when it ended up finishing 0-0 against a team that, as many pointed out, has been in the World Cup final 2 times in a row.
The last 2 World Cup finals?
Kind of a big deal, yeah.
Yep. So I want to maybe start with why I was so disrespectful to Argentina. And I should, in a way, apologise, right? Because they've massively exceeded what I expected of them. The footage I saw, the games I saw, their defending was really, really bad. It was a lot of players would chase down one player and leave someone else open. It was losing people on set pieces all the time and creating opportunities. It was an inability to clear the ball. They really couldn't clear the ball. They couldn't progress it forward. They would give up possession. What's really interesting to me is they looked a little tighter in terms of their formation.
Yep.
But there were still a lot of those little mistakes there, right? The clearances weren't great. The defensive shape was good. And the individual effort was incredible. But they still were quite limited soccer players and somehow found a way to get a 0-0. So I almost want to say I was right, this makes this even more impressive by Argentina.
I was literally about to say, I'll say it so you don't have to, and then you said it. Yeah, I don't think you were necessarily wrong. Certainly not to the extent that you need to apologize, although I'll accept on behalf of everyone. Apology accepted. We'll see if Argentina follows suit.
Maybe what I should have done, though, is look more into their strengths as opposed to just focusing on their weaknesses.
That's
right?
fair.
So that's maybe what I should apologize for.
But I take your point, though, that when we both watched this, we then went back and rewatched decent parts of it, or decent chunks of it, rather, and it wasn't, we were looking for what are Argentina doing? How are they frustrating Japan?
Yeah.
And there weren't necessarily they're doing this to overload this, or they're doing this to isolate this player. They did a lot of very hard running, good defensive work. They kept their lines, they kept their positional shape.
I mean, they had a tight back 4 and then 5 midfielders and then just Solo James up top. So it's like a 4-5-1, which is an obstacle, but it's not an insurmountable obstacle.
Unless you play the way Japan played. And that is the thing, is the narrative has a little bit become plucky Argentina get their first point, and it's such a great result, but man, we're Japan bad. And it is that type of game where you want to praise Argentina, and I'm glad we've kind of started there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this felt like Japan not executing in a number of different ways.
Yep. So here's what I saw. I saw Japan go out in a sort of weirdly narrow 4-4-2 to attack a narrow 4-5-1. And there was width because Argentina would shuttle over, right? If Japan were going down the left, Argentina would shift slightly to the right to match them, to get numbers over that side. It was all about having numbers all the time so that Japan couldn't play through them. The obvious ball then is to have your right back or your right winger, so that would be Shimizu or Nakajima, spread out wide right, and just a big switch, and suddenly both of those players are in space.
Yeah.
They never, ever did that. Fullback didn't go wide, winger didn't pull wide, and there was no big switch ball. Instead, it was short, slow passes to move it from side to side. By the time they got to the side, Argentina were already there to meet them.
Yes, and I want to add here that it wasn't the sort of there was one sequence when Nakajima on the right, she plays it more centrally to Sugita, one of the central midfielders, and it wasn't she then looked for the incisive through ball or the way to split the lines. She just kind of takes a touch and then takes another touch, and then she squares it to Miura, the other central midfielder, who takes a touch and takes a touch, and then she spreads it quote unquote wide, but
to the left.
Hasegawa on the left isn't even that wide. She's still very central, and then she dribbles wide with it, and the rest of Japan kind of slide over, and then they work it back. And it's in a 25-second time span. They move the ball from one side to the other, but that's way slower than it sounds like.
So then the big question is why, right? Why didn't the Japanese players or the Japanese coach figure out that you just need to switch from side to side much more quickly, and you'll exploit the space on the wings? How do they go 90 minutes without realizing that?
Well, I think part of it is that Japan, we talked about this a little bit in the preview, but Japan have struggled to create chances in front of goal. All White Kit did a good breakdown of their kind of statistics, pointing out that their expected goals is not very good.
Yeah.
So I think they've been struggling to create chances.
And this is not the 2011 and 2015 team, right? This is sort of a new generation of Japanese players.
Yeah. It's, I mean, with veterans sprinkled in, certainly, but there's a lot of new blood coming coming through. But part of that problem has been and I talked about this in the preview, they've been rotating people up top. They've been rotating goal scorers. Hasagawa who started on the left wing or left midfield.
She ended up top. I think she did after they made some subs.
I think they may have, but like she's played there. She's played on the right side. They rotate a lot of their forwards, and so I think they haven't necessarily found a recipe or a formula that works.
Yeah.
And I think you saw that here, that it was sort of, okay, we'll put them there. We'll kind of put a bunch of numbers in the middle so that like we can't get countered really quickly by Argentina. We won't really worry about them on the channels because that's not necessarily how they're going to attack, and we should be able to find a way through. And then the other thing about Japan is that when they're losing, they don't tend to come back. It's been kind of a hallmark of this team lately, but they also really, really struggle to kind of keep their game plan once they get into physical encounters. And I do think that Argentina did a very good job of engaging in some of the physicality without going overboard, exemplified by the fact that Argentina got 0 yellow cards.
Yeah, Japan got 3, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually saw more fouls from Japanese players, which I think comes through frustration,
yes,
right? Wasn't there the moment when, was it Sugasawa elbows Kometi in the mouth?
Yeah.
Just elbows are in the mouth. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but there's definitely a swing of the elbow. It's just weird to see more fouls from Japanese players than Argentina players. I don't know the stats, so maybe there were more fouls from Argentina players when Argentina were the team theoretically desperately defending.
Yes, but I think that you've kind of explained it there. It's like you see more fouls because the intensity is ratcheted up, and so you're going to be trying to go for the ball even like that much harder, but then also the frustration is there if that doesn't work. So going harder can mean more fouls, and more frustration can mean more fouls.
But I want to ask you my original question again. Why do you? I know we don't really know the answer, but why do you think it? How is it possible that Japan didn't realize we need to switch the play? Like, why didn't the coach just say, all right, maybe let's just go wing backs and we'll have 2 people pinned out wide. We won't go with this weird narrow 4-4-2 to attack a narrow team.
I mean, I think there's maybe a fear that changing things very drastically, as that I think kind of would have been, leaves you a little bit exposed, but it also shows that
it's like a stick to the plan kind of thing.
we got this wrong in the first game. Yeah. And so I do think that there's an element of it there. I also think when we see patterns of play consistently, we've talked about this many times on the show, that means they're doing it intentionally. And I think the fact that there was one moment when I was like, oh no, but they've got their left back wide, and then it was like she was 30 yards from their like right back, basically. Like that's how far over they were. And I think that was maybe what they were focusing on, is not necessarily we'll spread it and we'll cause them problems. I think it was we'll pack them into one side and we'll kind of find a way through there because we have numbers there to make it happen.
Yeah, it's a bad plan.
It really is, because as you've indicated several times, the obvious way to do that is you cram everybody onto one side and then you switch it very quickly.
Yes.
And also maybe that's part of it, is that I think because they didn't have the personnel, they were kind of going for that narrow approach on one side. They then didn't have the personnel to do the big switch, is why I think then if you do want to switch the play, you have to slow it down and take your time and make sure everybody else has kind of spread out before you can continue that pass.
Is it a confidence thing as well? Like you mentioned that they have a history of not coming from behind if they go one down. I would argue that if you get to the 60th minute and it's 0-0 against a team that everyone expects you to really smash, it's almost like losing, right? It's like being a goal down because you're a goal down what you're expected to be achieving.
Yeah,
right?
I
so
mean,
maybe they start to panic, and we saw a lot of those passes, especially in the second half, looked a little nervous.
Yeah,
and maybe it needs a confident player to switch the field, because it's a risky ball to hit, right? When you hit a ball 50 yards right across the field and you're trying to land it on someone's foot, it's safer and easier to play a short pass to a teammate who's 10 yards from you, and maybe they kept taking the safe option.
Yeah, I think so, but I think your initial point there is a very valid one. That you look at who else in this group, and it's England and Scotland. We watch them play. Yeah. They're going to be 2 good teams. England are a very good team, obviously, have the passing ability, the strong defensive presence, and the ability to score goals. Scotland, I think we saw aside from the penalty, a very disciplined game from them, and they've got creative attackers who can cause problems. Yeah. So I think if you're Japan, you look at this game as, okay, here's our game where we've got to get a result. We know that. And I equate it with strangely, it's FIFA where I've had this experience before.
Video game?
You need to win a game 5-0 to overtake a team on aggregate or something like that. And so you're so focused on, can I score 5 goals, that you struggle to score the first goal. And that's kind of what this felt like with Japan, is that they were so focused on, we know we need the 3 points, we have to be winning this at the end, that they kind of sacrificed a developed game plan in moments that okay, maybe if we do this now and make some changes and adjust our plan, it's not going to look good right away, but 20 minutes from now we'll kind of have implemented it and we'll get more chances and we'll get a goal.
So they never got to that
I think they didn't really want to take that risk of 20 minutes from now, what happens if that hasn't worked, so they just kept going.
Stick to the plan, right?
Yeah.
They were just following orders, stick to the plan, and the plan didn't work.
Yes.
Yeah? All right, so Argentina 0, Japan 0. Well done to Argentina, though. First point at a World Cup. Overcome huge obstacles. The Argentina FA has not been very helpful. Didn't we talk in the preview about how Argentinian women's professional football only just turned professional like a couple months ago.
Yes.
That the league's going to start soon.
Yes.
And they've managed to get to the World Cup and get a point even against those odds.
Yeah, and they were, inactive in 2015, didn't play. Yeah. I wrote it down because I couldn't believe it. No matches between July of 2015 and October of 2017. Fox put that one out there. That's a pretty significant gap.
Yep.
But I enjoyed, with all that said, there was lots of veteran experience in there, specifically in Correa, the goalkeeper, who I think maybe started wasting time in the 9th minute.
She would grab any Japanese cross and bring it down to the ground and lie down.
Yes.
And waste a few seconds.
And then it was not so obvious. She did do that in the 9th minute.
I'd argue that's the only bit of veteran experience, though. The rest of the defenders were often just like desperately hacking clearances up the line and they didn't go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Benini was like holding onto the ball a little bit too much. You could see the flashes of skill, but there was nothing that could be created, really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, I think your insight into Argentina was not incorrect in that, again, we didn't see them, they're trying to create these triangles and pass their way through. It was a sort of, okay, we're going to try to get the ball, hit the ball long. And the one that really stood out is when they did kind of, Argentina switched it from left to right. They get this attacking opportunity. I forget who it was who goes to cross the ball, but she basically mishits it and it almost goes out of bounds. Yeah. Like it just felt like they're kind of the freshness of playing in a World Cup for the first time showed there. I think nerves got to Argentina as well, that when they did have those opportunities, you saw them squander them a little bit.
All right, before we talk Canada-Cameroon, I want to talk Fox.
Okay.
Not the actual broadcast, but something we've learned about how you can watch Fox. So foxsports.com and foxsportsgo.com. We tried to watch, you can watch live, right? If you've got a TV provider login, you can watch live. What we found is on the website, you cannot access replays, only on the app.
Yeah.
So I want to share that with listeners in case people were as confused as we have been for the first 2 days.
Yes.
So to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong on this is what we've learned. On the Fox Sports app, if you've got it on an iPhone or an iPad or like on your Apple TV or whatever, non-Apple products also, you can watch replays through there. But if you go to their website and it says replays, you'll click on a replay and it will say, this event has concluded. It does just straight up just does not work on their website. We've had this confirmed by the tech people.
Unless they're rebroadcasting it in that moment.
If it happens to be being rebroadcast later at night, you can watch that. But then essentially you're just watching live TV.
Exactly.
Again, right? So you can watch it live on the Fox Sports website. You cannot watch replays even though it says replays. They said they're kind of working on it, but the tech person I spoke to also suggested maybe this won't work out, so you should just use the app.
I also appreciate that
I'm hoping we save people some frustration of clicking replay, clicking, say, England-Scotland, and being like, this event is concluded, and you're like, yeah, it happened 2 days ago, I know that, I clicked replay.
Have we gotten to the bottom of why we can't log in with different cable providers yet?
No.
Okay.
We could access our cable provider eventually, right? It just took
via the iPad, not on computer. On computer, Fios and DirecTV Now, not available for selection.
But I didn't want this to be complaining. I just wanted to get information out there.
Well, that's you. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good.
So quickly, Group D.
Yes.
England are top, 3 points. Argentina and Japan are joint second on a point. Scotland are currently bottom on 0 points, but Scotland is still to play Argentina and Japan.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm excited. I did say that Scotland-Japan game would be a very ugly game. That was one of my predictions. I stand by that prediction.
Why so?
Because I think...
Because Scotland defended deep against England,
yes,
right? Yeah.
But I also think at the time I said that I think both of them will get the victory against Argentina, so that sets up both of them needing a result. But since both of them need it, but both of them don't want to get stretched, they end up sort of kind of sitting back a little bit. And
maybe Japan have to gamble a bit more.
Yeah, it may well be. It may well be. We shall see. We shall see, my friend.
All right, well, in Group E, Canada opened it up by beating Cameroon 1-0, a header from Buchanan, the centre-back, in the second half.
Yes.
Good effort from Cameroon.
Yeah.
5-4-1, another sort of defensive shape. Come at us, Canada, is essentially what they said. But they essentially lost it on a set piece. That's the story of the game, right?
And I would say on a set piece that came about from an unforced error, worth noting there as well.
Yeah, do you want to get into this?
Sure.
This is essentially how the goal happens.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Canada have 3 corners in about a 2-minute span, and I think they had like 6 in the final 10 minutes of the first half. But in this one, they have 2 corners. The second one is headed clear, sort of, and then it's kind of put back in by Canada. And then Cameroon get possession, they get it out wide, and then it's a very bad back pass from, is it Ndumbuk?
Ndumbuk, the striker, who's back defending the corner.
Yeah.
She gets a not great pass from Ajara and Joya, the winger, but she can basically control it. And then Ndumbuk, I think, doesn't look correctly where her goalkeeper is, or just underhits the pass.
I think
and
also
puts
maybe
the goalkeeper in a 50-50 situation. Right?
I think is also probably a little bit panicked because she finds herself sort of going towards her own goal. I mean, going away from it because she's going towards the sideline, but it's certainly not the direction she wants to be going.
And there's pressure from Prince, right? Number 15 for Canada, the right winger, is putting a bit of pressure on.
But the ball, as you said, that the ball that comes back to in the book is a little bit, it's like ahead of her in the sense that it's played back, but she has to then kind of run like diagonally to her left to get the ball.
Yeah.
But she has to move probably 4 or 5 yards, and I think that she maybe thinks she's closer to the goal and thus closer to the goalkeeper when she goes for that back pass.
Yep.
So then when she hits it backwards, if you imagine her being 4 yards closer to the goal, that's a more understandable back pass 4 yards further away, and then it's a kind of 50-50 scramble that ends up with the goalkeeper putting it out for another corner.
I actually think it's worth highlighting that original pass that you talked about that was like slightly to the side of her and ahead of her. That was a problem I saw with Cameroon. They had this 5-4-1, right? And they have Ndumbuck at front. And their big plan, as far as I understand it from what I've seen in the past, is to go through the wingers, right? So I've forgotten her name again. It's Ajara Njoya, who plays that pass backwards that doesn't help. Is on one wing, and Ngune is on the other. And I saw a lot of times the ball would get out wide to them, and their passes sort of infield to start connect play and build an attack never quite came off. No. Maybe it's good defensive pressure from Canada, but I think that's where Cameroon's game plan fell down, is those wingers just couldn't get it moving out wide.
That is true. Do you know what else Cameroon could not do?
What's that?
They could not mark Buchanan for the goal. Khadija Buchanan with a...
So this is the resulting corner kick that we just talked about.
A big header puts it in, puts Canada ahead in the 45th minute, so like just before halftime, which is a major thing to do because it completely changes the dynamic for both teams at halftime.
It stops it being an Argentina-Japan situation, right?
Exactly.
Canada relax at halftime
but now Cameroon have to kind of figure out what they want to do instead of, let's hold on, let's kind of fine-tune the game plan because it's working and it's 0-0. Now you've got to change it up theoretically because you're going to try to get an equalizer. So, I think that is a massive difference maker, as is Buchanan, because it's a good header, but it's a better run-up and it's a better maybe... I think design set piece. I'm not really sure, or maybe it's just terrible marking from Cameroon.
So here's the setup, right? It's standard corner kick from Canada. Every Cameroonian player is marking a Canadian player in the box. It's just like man-to-man, woman-to-woman, like player-to-player marking, like one-to-one, except Buchanan, who is a threat on set pieces, right? Because she's a centre-back. Centre-backs always are. She's not like deep in the sort of the 6-yard box and that. She's like basically at the top of the 18-yard box.
I would say she's a little bit further out so that it is... She's like right near like the top of the D almost, or like inside that. And it looks... Maybe like she's just there in case the ball spills free.
Often a player is there like, if the ball gets cleared, then you're there to collect it or hit it or whatever, right?
Yes.
But I think her plan is to go and attack it. And by being so far outside of where everybody's being marked, I think she gets forgotten.
Yes.
Is it as simple as that?
Yes, I believe so, because you then have, 2 Cameroonian players kind of free.
Yeah.
It was Johnson. Johnson is the one who's free, but inside the 6-yard box, I think, to maybe go attack something. You've got somebody defending the near post.
No, it was number 8, Fujio defending the near post, defending the 6-yard box. Johnson was actually just, loose.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But she's inside the 6-yard box, and I think her role is if that ball goes to the penalty spot, she's the one who's free to go out and attack it.
Yeah.
But she is not tasked with picking up Buchanan, I think.
I see. So we think her role is not that she was supposed to go and find Buchanan and didn't find her. Her role was everybody else is marked up. You're the one free player who can go and attack the ball.
That would be my guess.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Except she doesn't really do.
This is Esther Johnson, the American, right?
Yes, but this is why it's Cameroonian American.
Yeah.
But this is why it doesn't. I have a hard time deciding what she's actually tasked with doing because she doesn't really go and attack it, but she never looks to mark Buchanan. So she sort of just kind of backpedals a little bit. Makes a half-hearted attempt to head it, but it's beyond her. Buchanan, meanwhile, is wide open, unmarked.
Crushing the far post.
Unobstructed run, as we talked about, is to the benefit of the header. See Wendy Renard's 2 goals.
Yep.
And another one here, because unobstructed, you can get on the end of it, and at the back post, the goalkeeper's sliding over. Never going to be able to make too much of a play on that one, and it's 1-0 to Canada.
You know who wasn't unobstructed?
Who's that?
Ngoda Undum, the Cameroonian goalkeeper. She starts making her way to that back post. Prince, number 15 for Canada, very smartly just kind of steps in her way. It's not egregious, it's just a little there's enough of her there to stop the goalkeeper getting to the back post.
Yes, I think Ngo does herself a disservice, though, because she does the thing we talked about yesterday with Australia's goalkeeper, Lydia
Williams.
Lydia Williams, thank you. I couldn't remember if it was Johnson or Williams. Johnson was here. But yeah, it's you're so hyped up to go try to claim that ball off of a set piece and claim it in midair and make sure that nothing happens that you're just going to do that no matter what. So as soon as that ball is struck, she steps out and steps out. And now, basically, because she's taken herself into the 6-yard box, you never are going to get the obstruction call that you probably otherwise would if she had waited and then made that immediate play to get the ball at the back post.
And instead, Buchanan really thumps it home with her head, right? 1-0 Canada before half-time. I think the other thing we should talk about with Canada is their shape. Because I think they did a good conservative job.
Okay.
Is that
fair? I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Because they're in a back four. It was listed as a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
I think at times it was that. I would say it was more like a 4-2-3-1, especially later on.
Absolutely a 4-2-3-1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the idea, I believe, was that basically that system allowed for Chapman, the left back, Lawrence, the right back for Canada, to get far more aggressively forward.
Yeah, they really went for it.
Yeah, but then you had Scott and Schmidt, thank you, as your two midfielders staying very deep and really staying. Like there maybe were a couple chances we saw them get involved in the attack, but for the most part it was sitting back, and then in Schmidt's case it was popping out in different spots to cover.
Yep. I think that's fair. Like, so they would sit in front of the two centre-backs, and even if needed, if there was a threat out wide, Scott and Schmidt, the two defensive midfielders, would spread and go and play fullback for a little bit. So Lawrence and Chapman, the two fullbacks, just had complete license to overlap, add all kinds of width to the Canadian attack to get around Cameroon, and then Scott and Schmidt are the security, the insurance that you won't get caught out by sending those numbers forward, because we've always got at least 4 back, 2 centre-backs, 2 defensive midfielders.
Yeah.
It was a really smart... Honestly, Japan should have done something like this.
Yes, they should have. I got that a little bit wrong, because Schmidt would cover, but the one that really stood out was Scott was the one who would basically go play right back when Lawrence would bomb forward.
And Lawrence got forward more than Chapman,
yes.
right? I don't know if she's the better player, but she was certainly the more attacking player.
Yes, but I think that also...
And wearing number 10, right? Similar to France's left back Marjorie wearing number 10.
As you do.
This is a great feature of this World Cup, though. Attacking fullbacks who are super confident wearing number 10. I'm here for it.
But I think we're getting then at the kind of problem with Canada's attack, though, is that if you have your 2 center backs stay back and your 2 central midfielders stay home and maybe cover for those attacking fullbacks, your wingers cut inside but don't necessarily get aggressively inside.
That'd be Prince and Becky for people who are trying to learn about the Canadian team.
So it essentially leaves you with Christine Sinclair to aim at if you're kind of an overlapping fullback playing a ball into the box. Sinclair, who it seemed like multiple times in this game was still a little bit in the Portland mindset of dropping in and not necessarily leading the line.
This was interesting, right? So the idea should be that Christine Sinclair is the centre forward and underneath her is the creative Jessie Fleming.
Yeah.
But Christine Sinclair, instead of staying up against the Cameroon defenders, would almost just drift back and be on the same plane as Fleming. So you had 2 attacking midfielders and no striker. And I feel like maybe Canada would have had a lot more goals if Sinclair had just stuck herself up against the Cameroonian centre-backs and been like, all right, I'm here. Let's get me some service.
Yeah. I mean,
too selfless, maybe?
Maybe a little bit, but I think also maybe just wanting to make sure that they don't leave any space in the middle, get counterattacked upon.
Yeah. I think maybe she just wants to get involved. Maybe it's that she wants to not be selfish and just, I'm going to stand up and score goals, stand up here and score goals. Maybe she wants to come and help out and connect play.
Yeah, and that's not the worst feature to have. One thing I think we left out from our review of Japan's game, Japan's lack of victory, I guess, is that also it seemed like as the game went on, they became much more individualistic. They were trying to take 2 and 3 players on instead of looking for simple passes and trying to combine quickly. Canada, I think, kept going for a variety of attacks. Not a lot of them came off, and then especially as the game wore on, they're less inclined to commit numbers forward. But it did feel like they would try a few through the middle. They'd try a few from crosses. They tried to kind of combine out wide and have one of those wingers cut inside. So I did appreciate the kind of variety of attacking efforts we saw from Canada, even if they weren't necessarily successful in finding the net.
I definitely got the feeling nothing to worry about from this Canadian performance. Not least because of those 2 defensive midfielder, the jobs they did, Scott and Schmidt, it just felt so secure that it just made me feel, if I was a Canadian fan, I'd feel safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a plan and it kind of works.
Yeah, I think whenever you are a heavily favored team playing against a relatively inexperienced team, this is not Cameroon's first World Cup, but still, I think it feels like maybe this should have been a bigger result, but the reality is a goal, a shutout, 3 points. Yeah. That's kind of what you need.
The alternative, again, is what happened to Japan, right?
Exactly.
That's what you've got to avoid. And that's what at least 3 teams will be hoping to avoid tomorrow. It is New Zealand, Netherlands at 9 a.m.
I'm excited for that one.
Chile, Sweden at noon.
I'm excited for that one.
It's USA versus Thailand at 3 p.m.
I'm somewhat excited for that one, strangely enough.
Well, I think because it's not a really dangerous opponent, it's less exciting, right? We're just assuming the US is going to win this, and we're more going to be picking apart the US performance, thinking about what went right, what went wrong. Did Rose Lavelle look good? Did Lindsay Horan look fit? And so on and so forth.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would also say this. Caitlin and I kind of talked about this, but not to this level. But it feels like a potential poison chalice almost, because it's either, oh, great, you won 6-0, that's what you were supposed to do, or you only won 1-0, things are not okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to avoid that sort of thinking when it comes to the U.S. women's national team.
So if they only win 1-0, you're going to try not to say the sky is falling.
Exactly. Yeah. And I certainly wouldn't say that because 1-0 is still a win, as we've already just said. But I'm going to pay attention to what Caitlin talked about, some of the stuff that you and I have talked about, and what I hope to see from them kind of in terms of an overall team performance, as opposed to did Tobin Heath destroy 8 million defenders? Because the answer already is yes.
We already know yes.
Yes, we do.
Right? In terms of the other games, New Zealand, Netherlands, look out for Rosie White because she's awesome playing for New Zealand. Look out for that front three from the Netherlands because that might be the most exciting attacking trio in the whole tournament.
Yes, but are they as awesome as Rosie White?
I mean, we'll find out tomorrow, right? We'll find out at 9 a.m.
We will.
At noon, Chile, I mean, again, I previewed them. I think they're kind of similar to Argentina. Not a great team, but who knows after what we saw from Argentina, right? They may be able to put up some big defensive effort. Sweden, you previewed Sweden, right?
Yep.
I'd be interested to know, can Sweden break a team down?
Yes.
Because they're more often they're the team that is more solid and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think formation will be interesting because Sweden are one of the few teams in this tournament who I think can play with a back three or a back four, depending on what they want to do. So how they kind of line up will, I think, give us an indication as to maybe what their approach is. But then also the thing I talked about in the preview is having the sort of combination of very veteran players who have been there and the spine is very veteran with a lot of young players who are hoping to have an impact, but young players who don't necessarily score goals too regularly. So I don't know how many chances Sweden will create. This is famous last words. They're going to win 7-0. But how they manage to kind of find their way through. It's similar-ish to Japan heading into this one of some veterans, some newbies, potential variety of styles, but not necessarily a lot of consistency in front of goal. Playing against a defensive opponent, we'll see what happens.
All right, so that is Tuesday tomorrow?
I would back the Swedes.
Tuesday's Women's World Cup, New Zealand, Netherlands, Chile, Sweden, USA, Thailand. We will, of course, have reviews of all those games tomorrow.
Of course.
Of course. All right, Taylor, let's close with some scouting reports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 updates from the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
We do indeed, starting with David Kishbaugh scouting Jeremy Ebobisse, 21-year-old forward for the Portland Timbers. On Sunday, Ebobisse came on in the 76th minute of the Timbers' home opener versus LAFC.
Home opener?
That's right.
They just remodeled the stadium.
There it is.
Yep.
Did you see the before and after? It's kind of insane.
It looks a lot bigger.
But did you see the one from 10 years ago when it was still a baseball field, basically? No. It's slightly different.
Where did you see this?
Maybe Merritt Paulson retweeted that one. I forget. Or maybe Richard Farley. I forget. They're very similar, those two.
Okay, I'll go find.
8 minutes later, Ebobisse got on the end of a cross and popped the ball forward to Brian Fernandez, who finished with a bicycle kick from the top of the 6-yard box.
So an assist.
Just like they drew it up in the dressing room. The goal cut LAFC's lead to 3-2, which was the final score.
Oh, so the home opener was a defeat.
Yeah.
But I guess LAFC are beating everybody.
But Jeremy Ebobisse scored a goal, and that's always a win.
Yeah. Chase Paul is scouting Gedson Fernandez, the 20-year-old midfielder for Benfica and Portugal. Chase says Gedson Fernandez played all 3 group games for Portugal at the U20 World Cup, but it was a fairly disappointing showing for the team, finishing 3rd in the group behind Argentina and Korea, which is the major upset, right? Portugal was expected to go far.
Yep.
From what I could tell from the highlights, says Chase, Gedson Fernandez played deeper in the midfield than he does at Benfica and wasn't involved in many attacks. He did pick up a cell phone off the pitch that was apparently dropped in the pre-game festivities by a volunteer, so there's that.
Picking up phones, picking up markers, it's all good. Francisco Sarmiento scouting Daniel Leyva, 16-year-old Mexican-American midfielder for the Seattle Sounders. Leyva finally made his MLS debut, coming off the bench for Alex Roldan in the 82nd minute. He looked good and had a few touches.
It's a big deal, 16-year-old. I've seen Leyva play for the U17s, I think, and I think I quite like it.
That's right.
Zach Rose is scouting Ronaldo Vieira, the 20-year-old English midfielder at Sampdoria, who is really a real player. That is not a made-up name. Ronaldo Vieira, 20-year-old English midfielder at Sampdoria.
There do seem to be more and more Ronaldos popping up. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Zach says Ronaldo played 20 minutes to help Sampdoria ensure a 2-0 victory over Juventus on the final day of the Serie A season. He only made 15 appearances throughout the season, but transfer rumours have popped up linking Ronaldo with a move to Milan, AC Milan.
Right. That should be fun for the tabloids. Ronaldo to Milan.
Yeah.
That won't generate any headlines. Tom Gaffney.
Generate a lot of clicks for some very
disappointed Milan fans?
Yeah, and some very unscrupulous websites.
Also that, yes. Tom Gaffney scouting James Sands, the 18-year-old American center back / defensive midfielder for NYCFC. Sands will likely be out for 3 to 4 weeks after suffering a broken arm in a 5-2 win over FC Cincinnati at Yankee Stadium on Thursday night. Young James suffered the injury in a collision with goalkeeper Brad Stuyver. He attempted to play through the pain, but was forced off in the 57th minute.
Can we stop there? How do you play through the pain of a broken arm?
Just, with intensity. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's big in like meditation, mind over matter, that sort of thing. I don't know. But I would not want to do that. My guess is probably they wrapped it up. They tried to secure it as best they could, but still, pain is pain.
Yeah.
It's a shame for Jimmy, said coach Dome Torrent, who noted that Sands was on the verge of being called up to Jason Kreis's U23 national team. I'm so sorry for him because he deserved to play for the national team, and it was a good opportunity for him. This is Torrent continuing. Yeah. I repeat, it's a pity for him because he played really well in the season, but he's a young player and he has time to recover.
So, yeah, if you haven't seen the U23 camp call-up, essentially Jason Kreis has called up a bunch of players for a U23 camp to get ready for the Olympics. Mm-hmm. But it's not the final roster, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
There we go.
Yeah, it's basically who is available.
I think if there's one thing we've learned about like the men's side of U.S. soccer right now, no worrying at all to be done.
No overreacting.
A-okay.
Oh, we'll talk more about that in the coming days, right?
Yay.
Final report is from Taylor Williams. It's about Matt Olasunde, the 21-year-old American right back for... It used to be Man United, but now it's unattached. Here's Taylor's report. Olasunde's Man United contract expires July 1st, and United have released him. He was on that list of players who are leaving the club, right? He was on the list with Herrera. So
that's good. Yeah. And Valencia.
He only played 5 games in the Premier League 2 this past season, and he has been released.
Yeah.
So the question is, what next for Matt Olasunde?
That is the big question. The slightly smaller
US
question...
international Matt Olasunde.
Sigh.
Yeah.
The slightly more interesting question to me is, has he actually been released, or have they just not renewed his contract? Because if his contract...
a bit of both, right?
Well, no, I guess my question is, like, if his contract was going to expire on July 1st or June 30th, were they really like, you know what? No. Like, we really don't need you for these 20 days.
I think what happens is you get, like, basically a little vacation in the middle of June and July, and you have to report back for preseason training, July 10th, something like that, right? That sounds about right.
Sounds like he's had about 2 years of vacation.
But I'm saying he's almost like getting that vacation, and he's been told, don't come back for preseason. But you won't want to make him show up.
How do I phrase this?
You can't make him show up at Old Trafford or Carrington?
Carrington,
and train for the next 3 weeks when he knows his contract's going to be released, right? It's fine. This is not a bad thing.
Everybody who's going to be at Carrington next season, step forward. Matt Olasunde, not so fast. I think that's probably how they did it.
Take a step back.
Yeah, exactly.
You two, Ander Herrera, learn some French.
Knowing the way United have been run the last couple of years, would you be surprised if that's how they cut players?
I still would.
All right.
Yeah,
me too.
So we're joking, but obviously it seems like he obviously didn't make the grade at Man United, but he's only 21. We hope for the best for Matt Olasunde. Maybe it's an MLS contract. Maybe it's a USL contract. Who knows? But let's keep being a professional soccer player, please. Yeah.
How many The Grass Isn't Always Greener think pieces are going to be written about this one?
I'm going to say 0 because his profile's not that high.
All right. We'll see.
You're going to write one now.
I'm not sure how it's going to be. I guess I'll have to do like a Google alert for Grass is Always Greener plus Olasunde, something like that. All right.
Do that. If people would like to join the Scouting Network and support the Total Soccer Show, the URL is totalsoccershow.com/join.
Correct.
Once again, today's sponsor was Simple Contacts. The code is TSS20 for $20 off.
Correct.
Your contact lens prescription. All that remains to say is, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and Caitlin Murray today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow with a review of the US Women's National Team's 2019 World Cup debut.